Okay, actually, turn on the mics.
Man, I missed it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start the special canvas meeting for November 18th, 2022. This is meeting 2022-37, and up first is canvassing the votes. So we'll hear from Ford County Elections Officer Debbie Cox to discuss the results.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm presenting to be certified the results of the election and asking for the counting of provisionals. We had 126 provisionals cast. That includes the mail ballots that came in that were not signed, that haven't been cured yet, and now it's too late to cure. I've had the reasons. We are asking that you count 80 of those.
Okay.
5 were name changes, that they were registered. 44 were address changes. 15 were clerical error. Either the poll workers couldn't find them in the poll book or misspelled their names somehow. 12 asked for their ballots by mail and then decided to vote at the polls. They did not return those mail ballots. Voted, and then 1 moved within the county, and 3 voted at the wrong polling location, so those will have to be partial counted. The not counted, we had 25 not in the...
Hey, real quick, just to go back to the ask for ballots by mail and then decided to vote at the polls?
Yes. They turned in an application. We mailed their ballot to them.
Yep.
They decided not to vote by mail.
Okay.
We track those.
Okay.
So we have it listed in our Elvis system that they asked for a ballot by mail.
Okay.
The poll workers have no way of knowing if they've turned it in.
Sure.
So they vote provisional.
Okay.
When we get these provisionals back, we check to see if we've received them by mail.
Okay.
If we did, these would not be counted.
I just wanted that for clarification.
Right.
Yep.
Not counted 46, we have 25 that were not registered. 1 ballot was dropped in the ballot drop box with no envelope, so we cannot count that one. 1 voted a mail ballot, then went to the polling location. He did turn in his mail ballot, so that's why we're asking not to count this provisional.
Because you count one, not the other.
Right.
Okay.
Because he did vote his mail ballot and turn it in. 1 failed to provide ballot identification. He had until this morning to turn it in, has not. 6 were missing signatures on the mail ballots. We cannot count those because they did not come in and cure those. We do call them several times to give them the option to come in. 1 mail ballot we received arrived too late to count, and there were undeliverable and deceased that came back. The deceased, those were not voted. They were mainly permanent advance that live in a nursing home, and those nursing homes will bring those back and let us know that these people are deceased. But they are not opened and voted at all. Election night,
Debbie,
yes.
On those instances, how do we know that they are deceased or not deceased?
Once they let us know, we start looking for obituaries, like the nursing homes. If they brought it back and told us these people are deceased, we will start looking for obituaries. Usually the Secretary of State sends us death notices because they get that from vital statistics. If these people have moved out of state, it may be slow catching up to us. But these ballots were not out of the envelope that we mailed it to them. So they were not opened and voted at all. But we cannot decease someone without proof of deceased. So just because they tell us that they're deceased, we still have to go and look for an obituary, a death notice of some type. I've even in the past searched for find a grave if I could not find anything.
So we're relying on somebody to tell us that they're deceased.
Not necessarily.
What happens if they're not telling us they're deceased?
They stay on the books until we're notified from the state
And their
or
ballot is then a viable ballot, is what I'm saying.
they haven't voted that ballot.
I know they haven't in this instance,
Right.
but they are still a viable ballot. And somebody with
yes.
nefarious intentions then use those ballots.
We have a checklist that we go through when we get the ballot back. It has to be signed on the envelope. We have to proof that signature with what we have on file. If it does not match, we contact that person and ask them, this does not match, because we understand that as you get older, your signature changes. I also have all the original cards from when they first signed, so if we can't match that signature somehow, we will contact them and ask them. If they answer the phone and they say, I didn't get a ballot, we're not gonna count that ballot.
I continue to question the wisdom in the number of mail-out ballots that we
That's,
I
yeah.
think we send a lot of mail-out ballots out.
In Kansas, they have to request it. We do allow a permanent list for elderly that are handicapped. You have to be disabled to get your ballot by mail on a permanent list, but everyone else has to request that by an application. We get that application, we check the names and the signatures to make sure that that is the person. So you could not request a ballot by mail for your neighbor or your wife. They would have to sign that application. We mail that ballot out. When we get that ballot back, we again check that signature. If that signature does not match, we're contacting that person and saying, hey, this does not match, did you sign this? And if they say no, we're not gonna count that ballot, because we don't know who got it. If they say, I didn't get the ballot, and we say, we've got this ballot, it has a signature, and this is not yours, they will come in, check it, but we will not count that ballot if they did not get it. We don't automatically mail out ballots. I think there's 7 states in the United States that everything is mail ballot. You don't have to request it by mail. They automatically mail it. We do not. The only time that we can do a mail ballot election is if it's a special question, and that's how people want it done. In 2015, I believe the school district did an all-mail ballot.
Yeah.
That's how they wanted it done. So every active voter was sent a ballot. We did not get all of those ballots back. We still had to process the same checking signatures against what we had. It wasn't just, they came in, okay, we count it. We had to check the signatures.
Okay,
So, any other questions?
I'm just drawing attention to where I think there is a weakness.
I understand.
Because of 827 mail-out ballots, compared to 1,708 that voted.
Well, my problem is, you know, like the death thing.
Right.
And there's been reports of that happening in nursing homes around the country.
Right.
That we have ballots for residents that are deceased, and they've used those ballots. So I'm wondering how
Right.
it is that you guys get verified that they are deceased. And if it's a trailing notification, then the ballot, and somebody uses it for nefarious purposes, if they use that ballot or sell it or whatever, it gets used before you find out they're a deceased person.
Again, when that comes back, we are checking signatures.
Checking signatures, I
Right.
get that.
Right.
And you can't have anybody that
And our
matches signatures.
Our mail ballots are also stamped. They have a mark on them. So if somebody makes a copy, we're gonna know it. It is a different paper weight. Also, these ballots, if you've seen our paper ballots, were 22 inches long. It's not something that's easily gonna be copied. It's for instance, the ballot that was dropped in the drop box without an envelope, I can't count that. I don't know whose ballot it was. I don't know the circumstances around it, so it's not gonna be counted.
Okay.
They can't sign their ballot because that would make it a ballot that people would know how they counted. So if somebody signs their ballot, that is also not counted.
Right.
But we normally have a good trail of, the Secretary of State is constantly notifying us of deceased people. Yes, some of them slip out of the cracks because if they died out of state, it takes a while to get all that information back. We constantly watch the obituaries in the news. We have Buckland, Spearville, and Dodge City. We also watch the obituaries in the local funeral homes so that we're not missing that. If someone calls and says, hey, my dad died, well, you're gonna have to bring in an obituary or a death certificate for us to get it off.
Thank you.
Election night, we had a problem with programming. We ended up having to hand enter, I wouldn't say half. What happens is I have 2 tally machines at the Civic Center and 2 tally machines at the Hoover. Each tally machine has 2 CF cards. Normally, they program 2 separate ones so that they read. They do read the ballots. They kept that. This prints out every time we close them down. And this has the ballots that were cast, has the results. These I should be able to load. When I went to load the 2 from the Civic Center and the 2 from the Hoover, instead of having 2 and have 1 A, 1 B, they were both A's. What printed out was correct because it collected, it just would not load. So we had to hand enter off of this the results on, so it was approximately 200 to 300 at the Hoover and maybe 600 at the Civic Center because I have 2 tally machines at both places. Believe me, the company heard me. They were not happy with me, I was not happy with them.
Who enters that into the system, the company or you?
I had to hand enter them.
No, on the cards.
Oh, the company programs these cards.
Okay.
So what is put on these cards is when you put your ballot in the tallying machine, that records the vote on these.
Yep.
These are downloaded onto my system. It was like asking your contractor to give you a 2-car garage and they build a 1-car garage. They put, instead of A and B, they were both A's. It did, because they're not connected to the internet or anything, whatever went in that tally machine was kept on this. The other tally machine, it was kept on this.
Okay.
So their programming people are not doing their job.
Okay, so I think in your wording there, even when you were talking, you said maybe instead of these actual numbers.
Maybe, I'm sorry.
It was just how you worded it. I mean, are those specifically?
No, these are specifically what came off of those 2 tapes, or off of those 2 that did not. So I guess I
Those are the actual numbers.
these are the actual numbers,
Okay.
yes. We have another set from the ones that did download. These are the ones that did not download, that we had to enter.
Okay.
I guess I didn't realize I said maybe,
Yeah.
probably just a,
Yeah. Is that one of the reasons why on election night we get the results so late compared to other counties?
this last time, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I've always got that question.
This is the first time that I've ever had this problem.
Okay.
I don't like to put things out there until I know that everything is balancing.
Yeah.
I have to check, I have a tally machine in Spearville and a tally machine in Buckland. All of my polling locations write down how many people they've had, how many's on that tally machine as far as the numbers. And when I run these tapes, I like to know that my numbers match,
Yeah.
so that I'm not coming in. This is the latest that I've ever been. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. The only reason we went home then was because the Secretary of State said, go home. Finish in the morning. Otherwise, we would have still been there at 6 o'clock in the morning. But I don't like to release numbers unless I know they're correct.
Yeah.
We could have been done at 10:30 Tuesday if it wasn't for these.
And when KSN starts reporting the news about what our results look like,
Mhm.
it looks like this time they reported somewhere closer to 8:45, 9 o'clock, I think.
I had my first batch done before we ran into this problem. The Secretary of State likes us to report at least 3 times. When I had my advanced done, I downloaded those and printed them off and sent them to Secretary of State's office. The next one was like 9:30.
And those all go in as like an unofficial number?
Yes, yes. I have to send them the copy that I download also
Yeah.
with that. And I hand enter that on the Secretary of State's portal that we have to go through.
Okay. Questions, Jim? Always?
I would invite any of you next year to sit on the election board, or at least come to a training so that you understand what's going on. We had 62 that we hand counted. The reason they hand counted is when they went through the tally machine, it spit it back out. I will not force it through. Usually that is the ink bleeds through, so it can't read it. Or they use a marker or pencil that is too light. It's always on the mail ballots that come through, or people that want a paper ballot that come through. When it goes through from the machine, there's usually not a problem. It usually goes through.
So Debbie, how do you feel about these machines going forward?
The machines are fine. The programmers need to learn how to program. And I've been with this company, well, Sharon went with this company, I believe, in 2012. They've lost 3 major people. We never had the programming problems that we're having now because those 3 people left. They keep telling me that they've got new people and it's gonna get better.
They as in the company?
Election source, yes.
Okay. And are we able to change companies?
I would have to change equipment completely because each company has their own equipment that they sell. They're not smart enough to program it any other way, I don't believe. Now, after my because they were not happy with me. I think everybody in the building hated me, the ghost and everything. And they worked for me. I don't work for them. So,
I don't know, we're trying to run fair and secure elections, and you know that we have had, like, over the last really 6 or 8 years, a lot of questions about our elections, and not necessarily right here,
right.
Debbie. I mean nationwide.
I can't speak for other states. I know what Kansas does. We are very secure, very secure.
Yes. But do we have the perception in the public that we are secure? And does this kind of thing help with that perception?
It probably doesn't help with that
I'll
perception.
guarantee you it doesn't.
However, I can guarantee that myself and my staff and my board workers are dedicated to making sure that it is secure.
I'm not questioning that.
And you're always going to have naysayers, just like the PIN theory. Really, it's a PIN that anybody can
Okay.
use when they're at home.
We are going
Use,
to have naysayers.
Right.
But when we have the machines and we have the programming and things doing this.
Correct.
We're giving them plenty of reason to be.
I
upset.
understand, and believe me, that election source, they,
So do you think it'd be better if we switch companies?
I've had ESNS, we had, as you know, problems with their programming.
Sure.
It's human error. Yes, it is not acceptable. And I've explained that to them. I said, you know, you're defending your machines, I'm defending your machines. I cannot defend their programming. I test these to make sure that everything is recording the votes as they should. I don't buy test decks, I make my own, so that I don't have that person saying, you bought the test deck from them, you know how it's gonna end. We make our own test deck and compare that. That way, they don't have it marked, pre-marked, to know how the turnout is. When we audit, as you can see, I hand count, my board workers hand count the actual ballots. We don't use the projected on the screens of what the machines recorded. We hand count those ballots. As you can see, we had 6 races that the state told us which ones to audit. We never had a problem. If there's a problem, it's usually because after sitting there and listening, one, they go off track. So they start over. I know some counties do the projection of the ballots from the machine. I don't believe that's an accurate comparison. Because that you are actually looking at the machine projection. This is counting the actual ballots that went through the machine.
I'm ready to move along.
All right.
You guys got votes to count yet, right?
Yes, we'll have, once you certify and approve that we count the 80 votes, we do have to count those, and I'll have board workers up at 9 o'clock.
I make a motion to certify the November 8th, 2022 general election results.
I second
With a motion second, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
it.
Gentlemen, do we want to wait until the results are back, or do we want to go ahead and close?
There's not enough to change any races because it wasn't that close in Ford County.
Make a motion to adjourn then.
I second
Okay. The motion second, I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
And the final results will be on the website later this afternoon after we get our counting done.
Okay.
And there may be more hand counting if they won't go through. The majority, well, all of these are paper ballots that we're counting, so if